Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Carla Gericke Show. I'm delighted to be back with you. It's been a hot second. It's been a while, and I have to apologize because I have been traveling. I have been busy. I went to visit my parents in South Carolina, and that was a bit of a disaster trip. I got COVID, and that wasn't fun, but I did all the early treatments. I had a fever for a couple of days and then I felt better. So, not a big issue for me, but I'm glad I now have natural immunity and I don't have to worry about it too much. As you can see, I am beaming in from my office here on the west side of Manchester. I have to say, I was a little in my own head today to get this recorded. Amongst other things, I clearly do not know where to look. So I'm just going to do it this way and hope for the best. For those of you who've been following along with my career and with my attempts to get my message out to everyone in the Great Granite State, you know that I just do things and kind of hope for the best. So that's what I'm doing here today. As I was like getting ready for this, I walked past this book. So I wanted to just tell people and see, now that's the wrong way too. But anyway, so this book I picked up, I think at an airport once, and it's literally called It's All in Your Head. Get Out of Your Own Way. So that's what I'm going to try and do. Once in a while, I just want to check in with you guys without a guest. But of course, if you would like to be a guest on the show, be sure to let me know. So I don't know how 2022 has been treating y'all yet, but I can tell you that it's been good. Once we got over, being sick, dealing with my parents, all of that stuff, I got back to New Hampshire and then I had to fly down to Miami. There are worse things, I can tell you, than leaving a New Hampshire winter to go to the beach. To be fair, the weather was kind of crappy. It rained and it wasn't super hot, but it was a nice break. It's nice to get away in the winter, and I actually highly recommend for people, especially free staters who move here who might not be used to the winters, to really thoughtfully and mindfully plan your winters. I mean, I'm a big proponent of you should plan your life, although I clearly am not a big proponent of planning whatever this is, but we do our best. And a big thing that I like to do is to say, you can get it wrong and then you can iterate, innovate, get it better and better and better. So let's start with what Hereticon was like. This was a conference that I went to down in Miami. It was an inaugural conference put together by Peter Thiel and the Founders Fund, and I was deeply honored to be invited, and it was pretty cool. So really the theme of it was sort of heretics or First Amendment or, just allowing people to speak. We have gotten into this habit, I guess, in America where, only one side is being heard. Discerning or dissenting voices are being silenced. Censorship is a real thing. And regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, I think we can all agree that censorship is bad, and certainly never in the history of mankind have the people who have censored other people been the good guys. So if you're pro-censorship, or if you think that the fact checkers on social media are actually independent, I have some bad news for you. They are not. In fact, there's a lawsuit that is currently pending where it was on Facebook, and where they on Facebook actually said in their own pleadings in response to this First Amendment case, said, yeah, well, our fact checkers, that's just their opinion, man. So, take everything you read on social media with a grain of salt, be discerning, be curious, Curiosity truly is the antidote to 90% of the problems we currently have. All right, with that, what are your intentions? What are you doing for 2022? Have you given some thought to sort of what you aspire to, maybe where you want to go? At the start of every year, people tend to, set goals where they say they want to lose some weight, they're going to get fit, they're going to do all these things. And I think that's wonderful. That is really, why not? I like setting intentions at the start of the year. I think it's, it gives you like a little kickoff to your full year. One of the things I've started to do is to kind of pick a word of the year. So my words of the year over the years have been different things. A few years ago, I think it was vibrance. I was really trying to sort of get that energy in me to say that, I want to give people, a vibrant, good vibe when they're hanging out with me. Last year, my words were effort and ease. And that one kind of came from my yoga practice where, you have to both do the hard yin and yang thing. So you do the hot, sweaty yoga, and then you sometimes just do the chill yoga. I like the ones where I just lie on my back and kick my feet in the air. So that was effort and ease. And you can certainly find more about this on my website, carlagericke.com, where I talk about the art of independence, but I also blog very regularly and I talk about all these things, including, sort of lifestyle changes. So my word of the year is going to be radiate. And when I initially blogged about Hereticon, I actually thought the word that kept coming up in my mind was network, right? I think that, as we navigate this sort of very nasty political environment and the mudslinging and the name calling and all of that, I was like, we need to build our networks. We need to remember that we're human, that we're all actually trying to do the right thing. We may differ about what that is or how to accomplish it. So I was really struck at that conference with the notion that I wanted to build out my network, make sure that, I'm connecting with people. One of the challenges was that my social media, I read a book on digital minimalism and I really wanted to cut down on my social media time. And unfortunately, the way the system works is I've got to be online more than I want to be. I've joined Twitter. If you are on Twitter, please follow me. My first name and last name, Carla Gericke. Come check out what I have to say. But yeah, so my word morphed from network to radiate. And that was mostly because, again, that's something within my control. That's something that comes from me internally that I can then sort of control and give to the world. And each and every one of us has that, right? You are a autonomous human being. You own yourself, or God owns you if that's what you believe, but certainly the state doesn't own you, nor does anyone else. And I think that if we return to being a little more mindful about our own space and role in the world, that will also help us heal the world. So my word of the year, radiate. I would like to radiate with all y'all. So let's find your word and live up to your word. And actually, that's a really important point too. I think that part of this disconnect can be fixed if people just stop lying to themselves, to other people, and if your word is your honor. So that is another thing. I'm pretty good about that already, but even the small stuff like, getting back to people at the exact time you told them, or, setting expectations right, and all of that. So the other thing I want to talk about today is also something from Hereticon. So I'm just going to mention this book. I mentioned it on Mensch Talk yesterday with Tammy as well. But again, I apologize. It's the wrong way around. I will slowly fix these things. But, we do what we can. So this book is by Michael Schellenberger, and it is called San Francisco, San Francisco, Why Progressives Ruin Cities. And, I'm about there. So I'm on page 127. It's a good read. I think that anyone who is interested in trying to actually parse out and solve these problems as they relate to homelessness, drug addiction, all these things, it's fascinating. It's very well sourced. And I think he is really trying to get at the heart of some of these problems. You know what some of these problems are at the heart? Is a permissiveness that we have to stop. You can't, by way of example, you can't, you can't just let people do and continue to do these crazy things. Here's an example. Yesterday, after we had recorded Manch Talk, Tammy and I had coffee, and then I was walking to my car, and Andy from Manch Talk, which is a local paper here in Manchester, New Hampshire, he had gotten attacked actually right in front of the studio last week. I believe his rib was broken, and there was some damage to his knee. Now, this is not cool. I grew up in a very dangerous country, and I left San Francisco, which was getting pretty dodgy even 20 years ago. So in 2001, I would say, people are already pooping in our driveways. Not cool. So here's the thing. You can't say that we're just going to allow these people to continue to do these things. We have to find a both compassionate but also effective way to deal with this problem. Now, as someone personally who has worked through a lot of my own addiction issues with alcohol and with other substances, as well as just really getting a clarity of mind about how I think life can be better for people, which includes eating well, sleeping a lot, the entire world, or possibly at least a good chunk of America, is sleep deprived. And when you don't sleep well, which you don't if you're using alcohol or if you're just not getting a literal enough amount of sleep, your brain can't detox. And if your brain can't detox, you start to go a little cuckoo. I'm not saying everyone's crazy, but I do think we have to acknowledge that we have created a world and we are living in an environment that is not good for a lot of people. The toxic world, a lot of junk food, junk diets, junk lifestyles. We could do better. And I encourage you to follow me, subscribe to all my stuff, and I will try and give you the tools to be and do better. If I can do it, anyone can do it. So that's the rule, right? All right. So that was a shout out for Michael's book, San Francisco. Check it out, get it. Let's see if we can solve some of these problems. But again, if you had a friend who was a heroin addict, would you let them stay in your house and shoot up? Or would you be like, hey, you could stay with me, but you can't shoot up? I think it's okay to tell people no, and we should be doing a little more of that. So shifting gears to the legislative session. Now, for free staters watching this, especially for all the hundreds of new movers that we have coming into the state, I want to give you a little lowdown. So winters can be kind of intense if you're not used to it, right? So first of all, I encourage, and you can go look at carlagericke.com. There's a list of 7 tips that you can do. Get the right clothes. I just read a great quote. I guess it was from Sweden, where it said there's no such thing as being cold. There's only the wrong clothes. I think everyone should take that to heart. But also something I didn't know when I initially moved, which I kind of wish someone told me, which is why I'm telling you, is that January, February, and March are actually the busiest months up at the State House. So if you're holding back because you're like, oh, I'll get involved later, I got some stuff to sort out, or, I'm going to get a slow start, or someone else has got this, whatever your excuses, start there, right? And apply that across the board to your entire life. But But this is the time. Like if you're passionate about any issues, this is the time for you to step up. How can you help? What can you do? You can go to Gen Court Mobile. You can do NHLA training. So that's the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance. They teach people how to review bills. They help you hone your skills to provide testimony. You can pick whatever issues you're really into. Everyone who follows me knows, I like right to know stuff, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Police, filming, any kind of open government stuff, because I believe if we know what's going on, we can fix problems. It's when everyone's just hiding what they're doing that we actually genuinely can't reform things. And I'm on the record a lot of times. I'm like, guys, I want to reform, but if we don't, then, there are next steps. So the busiest time of the year is now. I was actually thrilled. I got an email this morning from the ACLU. Gilles, shot me a quick email to say, hey, do you know about this bill coming up? I have friends from Right to Know who let me know about other stuff. There's cool nuclear stuff going on, energy stuff, all kinds of things where we can really make a substantive difference to the lives of all Granite Staters. So tomorrow, which will be Thursday, and I know this actually shows a few times, so it's going to be dated in a short while, but in any event, for anyone who sees this tomorrow when it drops for the first time, we're going to have several bills up at the State House. The first one I'm super excited about is actually a psilocybin bill. So that is, in colloquial terms, we would call that a magic mushroom bill. But the science is now there. We do know that microdosing or using small amounts of magic mushrooms has a very important, great therapeutic role to play for people. So if we're circling back to that sort of notion of addiction and the noise in people's heads and everyone's issues, people have PTSD from wars, people have PTSD from childhood trauma. That was something I personally had to work through. Like all of that stuff. This is something that can help. Now, there was a Supreme Court decision out of the New Hampshire Supreme Court last year that actually said that people are allowed to use psilocybin for religious purposes. And I believe this bill, which was submitted, it's bipartisan, it was submitted by the Democrats, and I'm super excited. I love it when we see a marrying between the groups, right? So if there's anything that's pro-liberty, meaning it helps everyone equally, as opposed to it's helping some kind of crony group or some kind of special interest group, then you will find that Liberty folks up at the State House, and definitely Free Staters, are willing to support the bill. So the psilocybin bill would make it that the product, the mushrooms, are decriminalized, which means, no one can get arrested for having it or for using it for whatever practice they personally need. So I think that's going to be great. That's going to be awesome. Definitely would be a step in the right direction in terms of pro-freedom for New Hampshire. I think Oregon actually passed one that may have been a legalization bill. So just briefly, what is the difference between legalization and decrim? So legalization is, in my opinion, when the government kind of starts to get its grubby little paws on stuff, right? That's generally where they want to then regulate it, write way too many laws, create too many laws, probably tax and regulate, so I would put a lot of that sort of when we're looking at something that's illegal and we're trying to introduce it into the more acceptable sphere, then I personally prefer decrim over legalization. That's just a way of saying, hey guys, let everyone do what they want in a measured way. and let's not, get the state super involved with licenses and all kinds of other crap that we genuinely do not need. So the psilocybin bill, that'll be heard tomorrow, Thursday, the 20th of January. Another bill that I'm super excited about, which will make me madly unpopular, but you gotta live your best self, and you gotta do what you believe. So people know by now I'm actually pro-independence. And what does that mean? That means, to me, in any event, I don't believe we can reform the federal government. I mean, geez, guys, we've been trying to do this for a really long time. But I do believe the values that America was based on, which were based on free markets and individualism, are worth pursuing and worth keeping. So when you hear independence, consider America 2.0, right? So instead of having like a visceral reaction where you're like, what? Which is a legitimate reaction. I've been talking about this for a long time. So to me, it seems quite normal. But think about it as actually preserving what made America great, as opposed to trying to destroy it. So there's this bill. It is CACR 32. So that would be a constitutional amendment. Now, New Hampshire doesn't have a referendum system like California and some other places, which also makes us cool, because you have to pass something up at the state house, which means from a democracy point of view, you need the buy-in of the people. Now, the CACR is something that would go on the ballot. So it's not a referendum, but people can vote for it because it is a constitutional amendment. So what the CACR 32 currently says, it literally says, are you in favor of amending the first part of the New Hampshire Constitution by inserting after Article 7 a new article that reads as follows? So it'd be Article 7A, and then in brackets, independent nation. And it declares New Hampshire peacefully, and that's very, very important, guys. Like all of this, everyone who knows me, I'm pro-peace. So like, that's the way we got to do it, right? We got to get everyone's buy-in. So New Hampshire peaceably declares independence from the United States and immediately proceeds as a sovereign nation. All other references to the United States in this Constitution, state statutes, and regulations are nullified. Now, I can imagine some of you back home, your head has just exploded. Let it sink in, and then think about it. Think about why or what your reactions are. I would assume veterans are going to be like, that's crazy, let's not, right? I could see people who are retired being like, what would happen to my Social Security? Legitimate question. I can counter that by saying that a lot of people leave America and go to cheaper countries like Mexico and parts of Central and South America, and they still get their social security benefits. So I don't see that, or I don't anticipate that would be a problem. Then people usually say things like, well, won't they come and kill us? And I'm like, geez, I hope not, right? I hope that if former citizens of America actually all voted for this constitutional amendment, which would have to get a majority of the vote in New Hampshire, and it's a higher bar than 50-50. I think it's 75% of people would have to vote to do this. Then we would start the process. Are these crazy ideas? I don't think so. So the trend over the years has been more and more decentralization, which when you think about it makes perfect sense, right? Because as we get to know ourselves more, and as the world becomes smaller in so many ways, because culturally we know what's going on, we have social media, there are cameras, you can see the life of someone else somewhere else. Why wouldn't people start to bandy together according to their values? Look, you want to be a commie? Go be a commie. Just don't do it in New Hampshire. You know, it's not that hard. So the question becomes, what about people who value liberty and individualism more than anything else, right? And everyone should actually value liberty the most. I mean, it boggles the mind for me, because that is the way that everyone gets to be their best true self. So, I'm constantly baffled, I guess, by people who criticize specifically free staters, specifically me. And I'm like, but if you're not for liberty, what are you for? Are you like a neo-slave person? So what would this independent nation look like? What would this process be? I think we can learn some good lessons and some bad lessons from Brexit. I think that we are smart, capable people who can figure it out. I think the main concern for me would be violence from the federal government. And that almost feels like that is the tell, right? The way I think about New Hampshire independence is that we are in an abusive relationship with the federal government. The federal government takes more of our money than it gives back. It gives it back with strings. It's not a good relationship. Before COVID, before all these grants and all this money making that is creating all the inflation that we're seeing, before that, the New Hampshire was actually a net payer to the federal government. And so that means we're giving them more money than we're getting back. So just on the face of it, purely on economics, that's a bad deal. So we should at a minimum be able to negotiate a better deal than that. New Hampshire is incredibly, secretly, awesomely prosperous. So we, I think, could, and I've seen studies, I haven't seen one in maybe the last 4 years, but I can go look it up. But, we are richer actually than Switzerland, Luxembourg, and some of these other countries. So if we have the desire to make New Hampshire this beautiful little country, and we have everything, we have mountains, we have cities, we have rural, we have seacoast, all of that, right? We would still trade with America. You could still go to Boston. I mean, there are ways to sort this stuff out. In Europe, they have that Shenzhen now, which is a visa, which means you can just travel between all the countries who are on it. So really, the only question becomes, what is your appetite for risk and whether this sounds like a good idea? I will tell you from an economic perspective, it's a great idea. I think in order to send a message to the federal government that we're tired of being abused, that we would like a national divorce unless they are going to stop their nonsense, which they're not, because we've been trying to reform them and fix these problems forever. The country is broke. I think we would all be better served if we, at a minimum, went back to real states' rights and federalism, or this needs to happen. Do I think this is going to happen this time? Probably not. It's going to take more conversations. I'd be happy to take your questions. Contact me. You can always contact me at carla@carlagericke.com. I would love to hear from you. We are just starting this conversation. It is a conversation. There will be no force. If Granite Staters do not want this, it will not happen. But I'm going to make it my life's mission to try and convince you that this is what you want and need. So that's it from me for this week, kicking 2022 off with a bang. I'm sure I've upset some people. I hope other people would just give the idea a fair shake. So many times we just reject things out of hand because it just doesn't sound good. But let it foment a little there in your noggin, and we will have these conversations again. You can, of course, always check out my book on Amazon or on my website, carlagericke.com. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you guys again next week. Take care.